Hello, Wayland Middle School. Mr. Farley here. Going to have a short video on how to evaluate functions given a graph. This is not an easy concept, but I think you'll probably catch on pretty quickly if you follow along and take careful notes as we go. So this is a crazy looking function graphed here, and I'm going to name this one the f of x. And that's the notation that you will see for different functions. It's just red, we say f of x. And that's what this notation is. The parentheses has the x inside, f outside, meaning it's a function. Okay, so what we're going to do is try to evaluate this function at different locations along the graph. In this notation down the bottom, where you see f parentheses of 2, we read this the f of 2. So that's what we say here. In words, we call it f of 2. All right. And all that means is you are going to input 2 into the function. 2 is the input. The input correlates with the x-axis. It's the domain. So I am going to input 2 into the x. So I look at the graph. I look at the x-axis right down here. Remember, this is your x. Okay. X is 2. This is x is 2 right here. I look up and I look to see where it hits the graph. And oh boy, it touches the graph at 4. So we would say the f of 2 is 4. Let's try this one. F of 6. Again, 6 is the input. So I look at the x, I input 6, and I follow it all the way up, and I look to see where it touches the graph, and yep, it hits right here. I come across, and it looks like it hits at an output, a y value of 6. Input of 6 gives us an output of 6 for this particular function. Finally, let's try an input of 8. So if I input 8, I look at the x-axis, I look at 8, I input 8, follow it up. Where does it touch the graph? Oh, right here, and I come across, and I see it touches when y is 2. So I would say the f of 8 equals 2. So that's the game that we play. All right. Wanted to just add one more just to see if we can do this. Let me clear the screen for a minute. Switch colors. I'm going to create a new one. Let's just do f of, let's say, f of 4. Okay. We haven't checked that one out. This tells me to input 4. I'm going to input 4 on the x-axis because x is the input. Input 4. I follow it all the way up to see where it touches the graph. Ta-da, it hits right here. Come across to see where the output is. Output is 6. So I would say the f of 4 is equal to 6. So that is how you evaluate a function from a graph. And even if the graph looks so crazy like this, it's perfectly fine. All right, you follow the same thing. Input the number that is in the parentheses and look to see where it touches the graph at that point, and that will determine the output. Let's try the second slide here. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try this one, and it asks a different question. I want you to evaluate this function, this time given an equation, all right, not a graph. So we say and do almost the exact same thing. Evaluate it when f is -1. This is telling me to input -1. And the input we know is the x. All right, input is the x. So all I'm going to do is take -1, plug it into the equation for the x variable. That's it. X represents the input. This is telling me to input -1. So if I do that, I learn that the f of x is equal to 3 times -1. X is -1 when I input that. And then I'm going to add 2. Using the order of operations, 3 times -1 is -3 plus 2. -3 plus 2 is -1. That's your output. So we can say the f of -1, all right, because when I input -1, well, what's the output? Well, I just figured it out. to be -1. These will not always match. This is just a coincidence based on the equation that we have here. Okay, but you always input the x, put it in, evaluate it, and see what it equals. And in this case, the output was -1. Next door here, we have another one. Evaluate the f of 4, just like we said before. The input, the 4 right here, is the x. You're going to put the 4 in for x, and you'll notice that there are two x's here. So I'm going to put another 4 in there. Let's evaluate it. F of x is equal to x, well, x is 4 in this case, which needs to be squared, minus 2 times x. X is 4 in this case. I'm going to put it in, plus 5. And now I'm just going to use the order of operations to simplify this expression. I have 4 squared is 16, minus 2 times 4, plus 5. I have a feeling people know you multiply. That is order of operations before we do anything else. So I get 16 minus 8 plus 5. And now when I have addition and subtraction next to each other, I do the one I see first. 16 minus 8 is 8 plus 5. 8 plus 5 is 13. So we can say the f of 4 is equal to 13. That is the output, and that is what we're looking for when we evaluate functions given an equation. So kids, now you know how to evaluate functions. You can do it from a graph. You can do it given some equations. And as always, if you have any questions, please check in with Mr. Coton, Mr. Robinette, or myself. We'll be happy to help. Hope you enjoyed this award-winning video. Have a great day.